Hi, guys. Welcome to the live chat. I hope you're doing well tonight. I'm so sorry this chat is late. Before I do anything, could you please confirm that you can hear me? I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. I'm going to put in the chat box. Could someone confirm they can hear without any issues? And I feel like I have to ask because we've had so many issues. So I'm going to wait. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dwayne. Bro Goose, welcome to the live chat, by the way. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Barb Pace Lamb. Welcome to the live chat. Glad to have you. Yoli, Olivia, thank you. Good vibes 30s. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, okay. Let's jump in. I am so sorry. Thank you, Judith Barrett. Live life. Kita Wida. Good evening to you. Thank you, Don One. I appreciate it. Ronald Zion, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for confirming. Keisha Monique, hello and welcome. All right, let me just jump in. It looks like everything is working great. Yesterday was a horrific day. For those of you who saw my live chat from yesterday, it still did very well on YouTube. God only knows why. But let's try to get through this, okay? My goal is to wrap us up by 8:50 or a little bit sooner than that. Let me just jump in here by talking about the reason for this topic. I'm going to give you a little bit of information on the terms, and I also want to be able to give you some research, and then we're going to talk about what this actually means. I'm also going to go to the chat box and see how you guys are doing, answer questions, the list goes on, okay? Psychopathic parents, this is a complex conversation because nobody wants to identify a parent as being a psychopath, right? When you think of psychopath, what comes to mind? What comes to mind? What comes to mind for me, if I step outside of uh, my clinical knowledge and experiences and I just approach that term as someone with absolutely no knowledge of clinical things or clinical issues, I would say that a psychopath is an individual that looks very similar to the actor who played in the movie Psycho. Okay. Or I would say that a psychopath would be the Adam Lanzas. He was a young man that went into his high school. He shot and killed his mom first, then went to his high school and shot and killed uh, too many kids. I'll put it that way. James Holmes, he's another example of a psychopath. Jeffrey Dahmer, Dennis Neal. So, those are psychopaths, right? Not necessarily. Did you know a psychopath could be the nice granny down the street who sits on her porch and waves hello to you in the morning or in the evening? A psychopath can also be a parent. And it's scary when the psychopath is in mom and it's also a dad, right? So, in a sense, you're trapped. And that's a scary reality, right? When I talk to my clients about psychopaths, I try to get them to understand that a psychopath is almost like an individual with antisocial personality disorder, but with additional components that makes them worse. So an individual with antisocial personality disorder, they tend to be very antisocial. They don't get the same pleasure that most people do out of connecting with others. They want to be alone. Sometimes they can be tagged a loner. Not always. We don't want to make loners feel like they're antisocial, but sometimes they are loners. Sometimes they just simply don't know how to communicate with other people. They may long for connection in some ways, but no, they'll never have it because of the way that they think about and engage in life. A lot of people with antisocial personality disorder look like your everyday typical citizens. The girl that's jogging down the street in her sports outfit, the dad who's walking across the street with his daughters getting ice cream, the mother who raised you, but then somewhere down the line just totally said, you know what, I'm done, I'm tired, right? A psychopath can also be your attorney, your therapist. I have a lot of coworkers that I highly respect, but I have a small community, and I'm telling you, a small, it is less than 5 people in my circle that I absolutely trust, because in my field, psychopaths hide. And I don't know if they intentionally hide all the time. So let me make sure that I'm clear about that. Sometimes the psychopath, psychologist, therapist, developmental therapist, they either don't know there's a psychopath, they don't know that they are disconnected from other people. Somewhere in their heart and mind, they feel like this is the right thing to do, and it gives them some kind of social reward. So we do have psychopaths in the field, but then we also have psychopaths in the field who, no, they really don't care about people, but they are in there playing the role because it's a good role to play. It gets them through life. It's something that can make them look like they are altruistic or helpful. So a psychopath can be very, very common in terms of how they look. Now, if we're talking about family psychopaths, before I go to the chat box, if we're talking about family psychopaths, that could be the uncle that stayed away from you for many years and one day decided to talk to you and then went on to groom you or cause you to trust him and then sexually or emotionally and physically violate you. That can also be the psychopath. A psychopath, which is a situation that came to me 5 years ago, um, could be a dad who is a high powered attorney, is married to a surgeon. She was a high powered doctor, if you will. Uh, they had everything that they wanted as a family. Unfortunately, dad was sexually violating his daughter every single night. And it went on for 12 years, 13 years, 15 years. And by the time she turned 16, she said, "You know what? I'm done with this. I have to come out and speak." Her lovely dad, if you looked at dad, you would never think he was a psychopath. Dad looks like that big teddy bear that everybody wants to hug, but that is not who he was. So the psychopath, I guess the picture that I'm trying to paint for you is that the psychopath could look very innocent. You have to be able to go within, be intuitive, know what you're looking for, know what it looks like, so that you can pinpoint, this is my mom, this is my dad, right? If you are growing up in a family where you have a psychopath mother, a psychopath dad. They are both manipulative. They are callous and cold. They are emotionally unavailable. They are emotionally detached. They have absolutely no responsibility because they refuse to take it. They're not accountable for anything ever. They never apologize when they're wrong. I'm giving you guys all the symptoms of a psychopathic parent. They have raised you in a way that is harsh, abusive, degrading, minimizing, and even humiliating, right? Let's say you have two parents like this. You're trapped. You're trapped. And growing up and becoming an adult child can get even worse because the psychopath mother tends to be very emotionally and psychologically controlling. So we would call that emotional incest or emotional extortion. The mother may push you into roles that are inappropriate for you, right? Maybe mom doesn't want to be available to her husband, your dad. So what does she do? She pushes you into the role of wife in a sense. And so you may take on that role unexpectedly or just not being aware of what's happening in the family dynamic, the sick family dynamic. So you kind of move into that role unintentionally. And so that's emotional incest. Mom is pushing you to become the surrogate wife to her husband because she just wants to go next door and gossip and talk about people and have no responsibility. If you're a son, right, to the father can also engage in emotional incest by pushing you into the role of the husband for his wife. He'd rather stay at work and work long hours than to be home with his wife. So he puts you in that role in a sense, right? So you're trapped between parents like this. Research suggests that the psychopath, that definition, that criteria makes up a constellation of symptoms over time That includes, I'm going to break this down so it'll make sense, and then I'm going to go to the chat box. That includes interpersonal, affective, and behavioral challenges. So let me break that down. The psychopath tends to have a series of problems that's wrong, not just one, not just two, but often three things that impacts not only them as parents, mom and dad, but also you. And that is they struggle with interpersonal relationships. And I'm going to tell you in a little bit how this negatively impacts you as you become the adult child. So, interpersonal issues. There's also affective issues, meaning there's emotional dysregulation on the part of both of those psychopathic parents. And it is hard when they are up here, it is hard to bring them down to a logical place. Or when dad is angry, it's hard to get him to stop beating mom, right? When mom is angry, it's hard to get her to come out of that passive aggressive mentality. She's huffing and puffing and blowing and slamming things and, just slamming books down and slamming doors and walking past with an attitude. It's hard to get mom out of that mindset when she becomes emotional. And then there's also the behavioral challenge as well. They act out. Psychopathic parents act out. And a lot of times they act out on you. Let me go to the chat box, welcome you, answer some questions, engage you a little bit, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, guys? It looks like we're doing well so far. Maybe YouTube got it together. I don't know. And my battery is supercharged. So, okay. Claire Williams, hello, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I also see someone new. I don't remember Christina LZ. Hello. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. She says something very interesting. She says, I want to find out if my parents, father and mom, are both psychopaths, or if one has bowed out and it's become a habit of love to reflect the same behavior. Well, let me answer that because I think a lot of people can relate to this question. Both parents can be psychopaths, but here's what's interesting. Research in psychology has highlighted to those of us who study human behavior that there is often one individual who takes up the dominant role in a relationship. The person with the most aggressive, dominating, controlling behavior tends to be the one that sometimes stands out as the psychopath more than that less dominant individual, that passive individual. There's also research that shows that there are gender differences when it comes to psychopaths. So dad may be a little less aggressive at home, more aggressive out in public with other people, while mom tends to be the one who goes around the house being passive aggressive, is angry, controlling, she's snoopy, she wants to catch dad or you in a lie. She may be very manipulative and triangulating of people in the family unit. Mom may be in some cases the dominant role, whereas dad may take the dominant role outside of the home and be more, aggressive and controlling and cold and callous. So there is some research that supports your question, Christina. You're right about that, that sometimes either one parent bows out of the scenario, or like I just told you, sometimes the mother takes up the more aggressive role in the home, whereas dad will go outside of the home and act more cold, callous, and aggressive out there. So, Silent Walk, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. You missed all the interesting pieces of tech issues yesterday. Judges, Bailiff, hello and welcome. Thank you for that. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Cherry Jubilee, hello. Welcome. I'm glad to see you. Sun and Sunflowers, welcome to the live chat tonight. I also see Ellie Wynn. Yeah, much love to you. Thank you for that. Glad to see you. I also see Elizabeth Wildly, BB. Hello. I hope it is going to be a good one. We're going to jump in a little bit here. Live Life, I'm glad to see you. Don One, I welcomed you guys at the beginning, so I'm going to skip through here. Bay, honey, hello. Thank you so much for confirming that. Glad to see you as well. Okay, Linda, I haven't seen you in a little while. Nice to see you. Welcome. Best version of self magnified. Ooh, that's good. Welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Crystallizing, hello and welcome. Bro Steven, hello. Welcome. Glad to see you. Yes, yes, yes. I'm so glad to support you guys and give you the knowledge that I feel that we don't get any other place, right? Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I love that. All right, I'm looking for comments. Annabis, the opener of Ways. Hello, welcome, and thank you for that. Hope you're having a good weekend too. Judith Barrett, hello, welcome. Thank you for that. Anthony Perkins, he was kind of handsome, right? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, he did play in Psycho. He did. I growing up, I was like, he's too handsome to be a psycho, to be very honest. And then when I got older and became an adult, I'm like, no, that's about right. That's about right. That's about right. Some psychopaths are very charming. Let me throw that in here. Some psychopaths are very handsome, beautiful. They have sex appeal. They're charming, right? And that is how they usually reel you in, right? If we step outside the family unit and talk about psychopaths as a whole, people who are psychopaths in society, they often know they're attractive and they throw that out there to pull you in, whether that's to pull you in into a relationship, to manipulate you, to gain control over your funds or your life, to control you in some way because they just need that that stimulating feeling on the inside that they're controlling something. Sometimes they use their attractiveness or their sex appeal to get you on Instagram, right? Have you ever scrolled through Instagram and you see different ones with cleavage up in the camera, or somebody's just kind of posing with their shirt off or being sexual in photos? They're trying to reel you in. And sometimes psychopaths go online and they post as many attractive pictures as they can. Sometimes very explicit photos. I've seen those in my day, and I'm like, this is not okay. I'm reporting this. But sometimes they will, because they know, as callous individuals who only have one goal in mind, they know that they can manipulate and control with their attractiveness and their sex appeal. A seat at the King's table with Tanisha. Hello, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, hi, Tamara. Is it normal? Hello. Is it normal that two psychopaths will be attracted to one another? Absolutely. Two psychopaths often have something in common, and that is manipulation and lies. So, yeah. Uh, Again, even being attractive, right? Sex appeal going both ways. Have you ever seen those quote unquote holiday couples? She's attractive, he's attractive, but they end up divorced, at a certain point because they can't really get along when it comes down to the reality that love is really the goal. Psychopaths tend to be attracted to other psychopaths because they have things in common. They are both often shallow, fickle, manipulative. They triangulate in relationships. They tend to get a rise or a kick out of, one night stands, pornography, anything that, oops, sorry guys, anything that kind of excites their sex drive. They're there for it, right? Psychopaths also love and this is how they are Machiavellian. This is how they have Machiavellian personality traits as well. They tend to be very to attracted to, sensation seeking, being really stimulated in ways that gives them energy, almost the kind of energy that cocaine would give you. I was taking a class on drug abuse years ago, and one of the things our professor said to us was, when cocaine hits the bloodstream, or meth, or I can't think of the other term for meth, but whatever, meth and cocaine, when they hit your bloodstream, it kind of gives you this rush. And psychopaths love that in each other, and so they become attracted to that in each other. There's many more reasons. I don't want to stay on that one, but that is how two people come to be in a relationship where they then become parents, and there's two psychopaths as a parent over a child, and that is horrific. I see it more than I want to say I do. I really do. And to make sure that I'm not being judgmental or my vision is skewed clinically, I will consult with other professionals who have experience in this area. And when it's confirmed that I've got two psychopaths on my hands as parents, I want to back out because we're not going to get anywhere. They don't think they have a problem. They don't. Sun and Sunflower says, I think I welcomed you. I think I did. Psychopaths look like normal people and can blend in. They can. Knowing what I know now, I understand why my relationship with my parent was superficial. No real connection. Absolutely. You have to consider that psychopathic parents are very emotionally detached. They also tend to be very emotionally immature. And so those are two bad ingredients to being a parent, right? Parenthood requires that we are patient, loving, sacrificial, forgiving, compassionate, if I didn't already say that, giving, humble, modest, empathic. I could go down the whole list. Psychopaths have none of that. None of it. I'm going to go back to the content on this one, Sun and Sunflowers, because it makes a lot of sense. So let me draw this connection for you guys, and I'll go back to the chat box. And then I'm going to tell you what these parents do that may actually cause you to say, you know what? That's my mother. That's my father. So, and I'm going to make sure I post this in the description box for you guys as well after the live chat ends. Psychopathic parents, according to research on the psychology of psychopathic parents, I want to post those articles for you as well. There has been some research done. There was a interesting research study done on twins. Remember a couple live chats ago, I talked about twin studies that, twin studies kind of makes us feel like as researchers, as scientists of the mind, we use twin studies to kind of confirm what we think. And we are so dependent, I'll say, on twin studies that when something is true once, we get excited, but when it happens twice, we get even more excited because then that confirms our initial hypothesis, right? And so twin studies kind of gives us that same confirmation. It says if twins can experience this together, that means that there's a genetic component to this. And so a research study that was done a couple years ago on 1,562 twins showed that when they did a how can I put this? I'm trying to break this down so it'll make sense to you guys. They did a study. They did an environmental study and they looked at the genetics of these 1,562 twins. They studied them between the ages of 9 and 10, and they went back and studied them again between the ages of 14 and 15. In that research study, it was shown that there's what we call a bidirectional influence. A bidirectional influence. That means that the parent being a psychopath, so being in the middle of two psychopathic parents and how they treat you over time can then lead to you developing antisocial traits or becoming a psychopath. It was also confirmed that a child who has specific negative behaviors and traits can also kind of influence the parent to parent in a certain way that is psychopathic. And so there's a bi-directional influence, which means both things influence each other. So that was one research study. Another research study showed that, twins who are being raised by psychopathic parents, they often grow up to have psychological, interpersonal, and emotional challenges. It's really hard for them to connect with people. There's interpersonal conflict where there's impulsivity in relationships, there's a lack of connection, there's an inability to be committed and stay committed. There's also a challenge in trusting. I would have that challenge too. If I had a psychopathic father and mom, oh yeah, I'd have a hard time trusting for sure. There's also emotional ups and downs in the relationships for kids who are being raised by psychopathic parents. And there are sometimes also behavioral issues as well. It's really hard to listen when your parents are psychopaths. You get frustrated easy. You want to throw the towel in. You don't have the capacity, emotionally to deal with these kind of parents, right? Okay, so that was one research study. Excuse me. Let me also say there's also other research that says that if you are growing up under authoritarian parents, who are psychopaths, it can lead to years and years of mental health issues, depression. You can struggle with anxiety, of course. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder was another thing that some of these research studies highlighted, which means if you think of obsessive compulsive disorder, if you think of OCD, think of it as being a very rigid pattern that is hard to change or shift. That's the personality component of obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's almost like OCD has been permanently stored inside of you, and so it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to live life in a flexible way because you have some OCD behaviors, OCD thoughts, and your feelings are very much encapsulated by fear. So, these research studies highlighted that if you're growing up between two psychopathic parents, it's possible that you could develop obsessive compulsive personality disorder over time. You can also become very antisocial. I don't want to deal with people in society. I'm afraid, or I don't trust, or I'm not interested. Authoritarian parenting, before I go to the chat box, and then I'm going to tell you guys what these kind of parents do so you'll know. But authoritarian parenting is basically the Hitler kind of parenting. When I'm talking to parents in my office, I'll often say, if you have been raised under an authoritarian parent, just know that your parenting, the style of the parenting that was used on you, was a Hitler kind of parenting. My mom, I'm going to self-disclose because my mom and my grandma, my grandfather and my grandma were very different, in parenting in such a way that it was obvious that my mom and my uncle had a different upbringing. My Lord, I'm like struggling with words here. So authoritarian parenting for my mom was this. My mom told me years ago that she would sit at the dinner table. My grandfather would sit at the end of the table like most dads do. My grandmother, would bring the food to the table. My uncle, because they were a year apart, they'd be at the same table eating. My uncle would just go ahead and eat the food without any complaints. My mom told me years ago that my grandfather would scare her and try to intimidate her. Now, this is authoritarian parenting, would try to intimidate her into eating her food. My mom, I believe, had a sensitivity to certain kinds of foods, like most kids do. I don't like the texture. I don't like the flavor. I'm a picky eater. That makes me sick. I'm not going to touch that. Gross, right? Kids are like that. What my grandfather would do, according to my mom, is sit at the end of the table, tell her to eat. He didn't have to yell, scream. All he had to do was give her a very firm rebuke. When she still refused, he would go get his belt, put it around his neck, and tell her, "You better eat." And he scared her into eating. That's the only way my grandfather knew how to parent, was to scare her into eating. That's a no-no. That's not even half appropriate. So that's an example of authoritarian parenting. Now, my clients that I currently see now for therapy, family therapy, their parents, which I'm so glad to see, is authoritative, meaning they tend to be firm when they need to, but loving also when they need to. They are flexible. They know when to be firm and they know when to be flexible. If you have two psychopathic parents, right? Imagine sitting at a table trying to eat your dinner, and mom has a belt around her neck and dad has a belt around his neck, forcing you to eat. How are you going to feel? So that's a little bit of a example, I think, of how psychopathic parents parent. They are authoritarian, and growing up, according to research, under parents like this, especially if you have two, can lead to years and years of insecurity, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, right? Self-medication, because the painful reality of your parents is just too much to bear, It can also lead you down a long, long road of negative relationships, one after the other, because most of these kids grow into adult children who have a vulnerability that's kind of inside, permanently. There's this wound, this void that's there. And certain relationships are sought after, but they are the wrong ones. And so you may find yourself in repeated relationships that remind you of your parents, or you may get into relationships that are similar and really bad for you, you know? Let me also say, too, these kind of parents, even if you're an adult child, these kind of parents tend to lack a lot of responsibility and self reflection and self direction. They just do what they want to do when they want to do it because they feel they can. They are not rule bound. They are not parents who tend to be committed, honest, loving, compassionate. They lack a very healthy socio emotional development. That's basically what it is. They lack they lack a history of a healthy socio emotional development, meaning they don't know how to engage and they don't know how to control their emotions, and they have absolutely no empathy. Cold, callous. That's the way you want to see these kind of parents. Okay, I am going to go back to the chat box, see what you guys are doing, see what you guys are saying, answer some questions. I'm going to also tell you what these parents look like. Yoli Olivia, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says you're describing me because I find people extremely exhausting. Sometimes I cannot be bothered by. I'm not a psychopath. Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. I work with a lot of people a week. By the time I hit Friday night, I'm exhausted. Do I want to see my neighbors? No. Do I want to wave hi to you across the street when I'm just in my bathrobe and want to go get my mail? No. Do I want to sit on my back porch and look at the birds eating out of a bird feeder and listen to the pond? Yes. Do I want to just sit outside and build a fire and read a book? Yes. So, Yoli Olivia, let me just say, it's okay to be that way. What makes an individual a psychopath is that they have absolutely no compassion and empathy. The lack of empathy is the issue here. The other issue is that they have constant behavioral problems, constant emotional problems, and constant interpersonal problems. They also tend to be in trouble with the law most of the time. They have a long rap sheet, most of these parents, of being in trouble with the law. So I hope that you can kind of tease apart yourself from this definition. Yes, you're welcome, Ellie Wynn. You're welcome. You're welcome. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. Best version of self magnified says, my son's father is the best imposter out there, easily able to get people to like him. Yes, absolutely. Let me say, people can be very attracted to people with charisma and a high level of stamina. And, some people are just naturally personable. If I can say so myself in a humble way, I'm kind of like that with people. I always approach people with a loving demeanor until you make me see you a different way. And then I have to change up on you. But for the most part, right, I think personable, loving people pull other people in. However, a psychopath can do the same. What's different is a psychopathic parent or a psychopathic family member can be nice, compassionate, and loving and personable up until a certain point, and then they stop. And then the rest of the way, they are like Satan, for lack of a clinical term. So that's what kind of separates the psychopath from somebody who is personable. That's the best way for me to put that. Elizabeth Pepper says, learning that someone you know is psychopathic comes with intense cognitive dissonance, doesn't it? For those of you, I'm going to break this down in a minute here. For those of you who are not aware of what she means by cognitive dissonance, we're talking about you may see a parent or a loved one, that's what I'm trying to say, in two different ways. Right. So one way is, that's my parent. I love them. That's my family member. I love them. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. But then you may also say on the other side of that, but they're cold, callous, uncaring. They're mean. They're just not, no. Society would slam the door on them because they're just that cold and callous. Instead of accepting that they're a psychopath, you may actually drop that view of them and uphold the very nice side of them. And so your brain kind of says, I can't hold within myself these two opposing views. How can you be so nice on one hand and so cold and callous on the other? Terrifying. So she's right. There is definite cognitive dissonance here. Definite cognitive dissonance. She goes on to say, it challenges your understanding of the disorder, then your perspective of the person. My God, Elizabeth, you want to switch seats with me? I can leave. I can leave. That's good. I very much agree. She says very mentally exhausting. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If I can safely say so myself, I've run across professionals in my field who are psychopaths, and I've had to work with them in the past. And I've also been hurt by them in the past in the workplace, in the field that I'm in. And so for me in the past, if I look at little young Tamara, when I was under the age of 28, trying to get a start in this field and understand what I was looking at clinically, having coworkers that were very cold and callous and would make fun of patients, harm patients, not really care about them, say things that were cold and callous, try to hurt me. When I would see that, my mind would go through a cognitive dissonance, right, Elizabeth? It was hard for me to hold in my mind. You're in the mental health profession. Why are you this cold? And yet at the same time, you can be very nice. So this doesn't make sense to me. And so you're right that you have to grasp this new understanding of the disorder in and of itself, that it could be a very sweet looking person that can be a psychopath. And then you also have to grasp the reality that it's somebody that you know. So yeah, you're right. I very much agree with that. Very true, Elizabeth. Good Vibes 30 says, goodness, psychopaths, even in the therapist field? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've heard sad stories of problematic therapists. What are the signs? Well, just briefly, so we don't get too much out of time here. The signs are typically the same as what I'm talking about tonight. There's interpersonal problems where maybe the therapist is showing up late all the time, eating in front of you, answering the phone during your session time, doing very unethical things like double billing you, uh, billing you for insurance claims where an appointment never happened in the first place. Sometimes they are very behaviorally unhinged. They get upset, right? They may break down in tears and cry. They may get angry with you when you decide you're going to pursue another therapist, right? They may try to sue you as a patient. I've seen those stories before as well. And let me just say, as a disclaimer, this is not the whole field. This is a few bad eggs in the field. They've gotten in the field and they shouldn't be. And so unfortunately, they're scary people, right? I have a video on my channel about unethical therapists. If you watch that video, it's an old one, but if you watch that video, you'll see exactly what a psychopathic therapist looks like. So go ahead and check that out. Napalm 1334, hello, welcome. You're not late. We're going to wrap up here in a little bit, but you are here. Glad to see you. Nancy R., I don't know if I welcomed you. Hello and welcome. We're going to wrap up here in just a little bit. I want to tell you guys what these parents do in a second here. Nancy R. says, if in my mind, I can believe that my mother was a dark empath, can she have these psychopathic or other traits? Yes, she can. A dark empath is an individual who has what's called the dark triad. That's basically the root of the dark empath. So the dark triad is Machiavellianism, which is that stimulation that these dark individuals get when they do something mean, cold, and callous. It's kind of like, yeah, that's what I wanted to happen, kind of thing. That's Machiavellianism. Then they are also narcissistic. Nancy R., they're narcissistic. And then the third most important personality trait of the dark triad is the psychopath. So yes, these individuals, and yes, mom could have been a psychopath. Sometimes if you're dealing with a dark empath, an individual who has Machiavellianism as a personality trait, narcissism, and psychopathy, sometimes one trait outshines the others. So let me repeat that. Sometimes one trait outshines the other. So maybe the dark empath that you've been in contact with is showing more traits of narcissism than anything else. Maybe they're showing more traits of psychopathy than anything else. So in a nutshell, Nancy R., yes, absolutely. You are right. Okay, let me scan through here briefly. Angela, hello and welcome. Thank you for that heart. I hope you're having a good weekend. I hope all of you are having a good weekend. My weekend here has been a mess. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Nancy R. I really appreciate that. That's so humbling. Um, oh, this is a hard one. Persephone rising. Persephone rising? Okay, we're gonna say that. I apologize for that. Says hello and welcome, by the way. Says my mom is one. Gorgeous, nice body, charismatic. Yeah, 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 absolutely. That's difficult to deal with for sure. Happy Mama 412, hello and welcome. Says, I wonder how early they realize they are different. Let me just be honest with you and say psychopaths never really realize they are different. Now, let me also say, and I'm going to get back to the content, then I'll check the chat box, we'll wrap up. Let me also just say that some psychopaths are very unaware of how antisocial they are. They are also very unaware of how they impact other people, how they impact their own life and their own success. If a psychopath like Jeffrey Dahmer would have had enough sense to pause before he murdered his first victim, then he could pause that impulsivity that lies at the core of his being. He could have stopped and said, I'm going to jail. I am not going to get away with this. But Jeffrey Dahmer didn't have that brake pedal. It wasn't there, right? He couldn't pump the brakes. All he could do is act on impulse, act on impulse, and plan the next murders that he would then engage in, right? So it's scary, right? Some psychopaths do know who they are. Some psychopaths have absolutely no clue. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I've had 4 psychopaths that I've treated as parents over the last 14 years of my career. I haven't seen many of them, but 4 is enough for me because anytime I have a psychopath on my caseload, I am held over time in my office during sessions because they're either arguing or fighting or having some kind of issue with a relationship, and they feel that they are owed my additional time. So they hold you over time. They're very manipulative and very greedy. They think they're so attractive and hold such a high sex appeal that they can get whatever they want if they smile at you a certain way, tell you how wonderful you are, or flatter you, right? Or what they do is gang up on you to ask you something that they want with somebody else in their life, a parent, a relationship partner, whatever. So psychopaths, some of them know that they are behaving inappropriately and some do not. The ones that know that they are engaging inappropriately are the psychopaths that have a little bit more cognitive strength in terms of identifying how they impact their own world. They can step back and say, I really don't care. I really don't have emotions for my husband, my children, my mother. I never really cared about other people. They can give you that description of themselves. So it really just depends on who you're dealing with. Okay, last part of this chat, guys. What are these parents like? Well, jealousy and envy. Jealousy and envy is the number one identifier of having a psychopath parent. I have a lot of videos. I'll post them in the description box for you. I have a lot of videos on parental jealousy, parents who simply don't care. I'll post that as well. So, jealousy and envy. Think of Mommy Dearest. Think of that movie. I'm going to post that for you as well. Very emotionally dysregulated, jealous of her daughter, and very highly controlling. Very OCD, but almost to the point of needing hospitalization. So jealousy and envy is in there. You also have manipulativeness and callousness. There's a deep core of Machiavellianism. They sometimes get a rise out of your demise, right? Your demise. They get a rise out of that. That kind of makes them feel good. They are callous and manipulative, right? When you're callous and manipulative, you may, in your manipulative mode, try to sabotage your daughter, your son. And the callousness that's in your being allows you to enjoy that process. So, Machiavellianism. They also engage in emotional torment bit by bit. So, maybe they emotionally torment you when you need a loan. Maybe they emotionally torment you when something bad is going on in your life and you just need them to say that I'm there for you, right? Maybe they are engaging in emotional tormenting of you when you're down on your luck and you need them, and then they slam the door, right? That's their go-to, emotional tormenting. That's how it feels on your end, I'm sure. And I have had clients who have dealt with that before, and it's like emotional torment. Help me escape. One child said this to me 2 years ago. Miss Tamara, can you help me escape my mom and my dad? And he was 15. But he had a very psychopathic mom and dad, and they tormented his soul. There's often inconsistency with no remorse. You know, they stand you up many times. They don't attend your wedding because, oops, I forgot. They're not there during the birth of your first child. Whoops, I forgot about that. Oh, I don't have the money to buy anything, so I didn't want to show up. You know, another example of inconsistency with no remorse would be, Mom, I'm down on my luck. I need money to cover my rent this month. Can you loan me 4,000 or 1,400? Oh, absolutely not. I'm done with helping you, right? She helped you last time, but somehow for this reason, for no reason at this moment, excuse me, she's decided I'm not going to help you. I'm done, right? So inconsistency with no remorse. Authoritarian parenting, we just talked about that, become very, very hard on you. No remorse, no compassion, nothing. Full-blown rejection. Research highlights that full-blown rejection of the child, adult child, is a sign of parental psychopathy. I know you came from me, but I want nothing to do with you. You may be the best person in the whole world. I don't want you. You know, I once had a parent sit in therapy with me and say, this was a mistake. Unfortunately, I have 2 children. And I remember thinking, what? But as therapy went on, I learned she was a psychopath. And all she wanted was things to make herself feel good. They're shallow and scheming. Shallow and scheming, right? Remember, I said earlier, they use their sex appeal, they use their attractiveness. They are indifferent and they have no empathy. Oh, I don't really care. Oh, dad died. Oh, when did that happen? Can you take me to the nail salon? Right? That kind of indifference. Another example of indifference might be, oh my God, when did you get married? I totally forgot that was happening. Let me send you something. And they never send you anything, right? They're shallow. They're indifferent. They don't care. They're nonchalant about everything. They have what's called aversive personality traits. Aversive personality traits. Just about everybody has this kind of experience with them. Nope, I don't like you. You know, aversive personality traits. They have an emotional disconnect. Remember, I said at the very beginning, they are emotionally unavailable and emotionally immature. So there is an emotional disconnect with these parents. You may always feel at the core of your being and in your soul that they are not loving. They are not there for you. They will never be there for you. That's an emotional disconnect. And lastly, they treat you like a personal possession. I'll put it that way. They treat you like a personal possession. If they don't reject you because they don't care, then they'll pull you in and treat you like a personal possession or some kind of trophy child, you know? Oh, yeah, my son went to Harvard. Let me show you his photo. You know, that's a proud parent. But when it goes too far and it gets to be too much, then that becomes, you're my personal possession. I made you. Okay. So that's the last identifier of a psychopathic parent. Let me go to the comment section, see what you guys are saying and doing. We're going to wrap up. Okay, guys. My Lord, Angela, this is a tough topic, and I'm only scratching the surface, believe it or not. Angela says, with 2 psychopathic parents, does that give the children or child much of a chance to not do the same? Well, here's the thing, and that's a fantastic question. If you have 2 psychopathic parents, knowing that sometimes those cold, callous, unemotional traits can be genetic, not psychopathic, right? Because psychopathic traits are not necessarily genetic. What's genetic is the cold, callous, unemotional traits. I know that's confusing. The psychopath can be made over time, but the cold, callous, unemotional traits are genetic, according to research. And so, yes, if a parent is very cold, callous, and unemotional, And the definition becomes clinical, meaning that their cold, callous, unemotional traits are way up here. It meets the criteria for a diagnosis. Then yes, it can be transferred to the child. Absolutely. Yeah. MN Odell, hello and welcome. We're going to sign off here in literally 5 minutes. Says hello, all fascinating subject matter, but scary as well. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I agree. Bro Steven says psychopaths stay very busy, Tamara. Yes, they do. They're always doing something. And they're not just the sneaky psychopaths either. They tend to be individuals who go out and do things like, car race on the roadway, cut in front of you in traffic and cut in front of somebody else and then get out and bully somebody in a store. Excuse me, have this I'm not to be played with kind of disposition with everybody, JKD Merit Master Group, hello and welcome, says control by emotion and stilling the emotion. Narcissistic people look at life as so cheap. Well, yeah, sometimes they do. Yeah, sometimes they do. Yeah, but that is narcissistic people. Psychopaths are a little bit different than that for sure. They tend to jump in to life and try to control everybody else's. A seat at the king's table set with Tanisha says it sounds like psychopath couples deserve each other. Yeah, sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. If you are an avid, and I have to go, guys, in a little bit, so we're gonna wrap up, and I want you guys to not be on here all night with me. If you are an avid Judge Judy fan, like my mom and my younger brother are, oh my God, you probably know that there are some segments where one person in a relation or in a previous relationship, the exes are fighting. I'll put it that way. The exes are fighting. Sometimes Judge Judy will say, your case is dismissed. You guys deserve each other. I've heard that in passing as I'm walking by, and my brother and my mom are watching it. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes they do deserve each other. Oh, yeah. Christina Liz or LZ says, when you said that one or the other of the adults may have their children step in, my ex-husband would insist to my kids to go on dates when his now wife expects to be alone. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that I don't think I have anything to say about that, but I have seen that pattern for sure. Napalm 1334 says, how can you tell if a friend is psychotic? Ooh, that's different from a psychopath. So there's a psychopath and psychotic. We'll talk about that at another time, Napalm. I don't want to you corrected it. Here you go. You say psychopathic. Ooh, so that's difficult. That's another conversation, Napalm. We're going to talk about that another time. I don't want to get off topic here. I'm sorry, but that's a great question. I'm going to come back to that, I promise. Lauren Knight, hello and welcome. We're going to sign off here in just a little bit. Says, I enjoy the process of learning new things. That's how I approach dealing with my trauma. Use knowledge to kill my trauma. That's a great way to put it. Now I think I need help. My bio parents are psychopathic, not narcissistic. Well, you may have watched this live chat tonight and thought, wait a minute. I thought it was narcissism, right? But let me just say, it can be both. And this is why psychologists, psychotherapists, mental health professionals, researchers, scientists struggle with diagnosing people, because life can shift a diagnosis. Maturity or lack thereof can shift a diagnosis, and so too can your perspective. So here's the thing. Maybe mom and dad have always been psychopaths, but they also have some elements of narcissism. Mental health professionals can diagnose multiple things, right? So you could have bipolar disorder and be a narcissist. You can have borderline personality disorder and be a sociopath, or have antisocial personality disorder. You could also have obsessive compulsive disorder and be a sociopath, or have antisocial personality. So, it can be a variety of different things. We call that co-occurring disorders or comorbidity. Two or more things are happening. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad if you see multiple things and you're like, okay, now I'm really confused. Don't feel bad, because we professionals have to go to school for several years to get it. My education has been 10 years. 10 years. And I still, every year, every 2 years, have to go back and brush up on learning tools. So this takes a lot. Don't feel bad if you're like, wait a minute, I thought it was this, and now I think it's a psychopath. It could be both. Could be both. Mark Taylor, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. We're going to sign off here in a little bit. Says, hello, Tamara. Are dark empaths, sociopaths, and psychopaths on the same psych spectrum? Yes. Yes. Keep in mind the dark triad traits, Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy, is the dark empath. Okay, so that's there. Narcissism and then psychopathy. That's how you should look at that one. Don't forget Machiavellianism. That's in there too. Repurposed art, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, I have to disagree that psychopaths are attractive and or charismatic. Well, have you met every psychopath in the world? Probably not. They're interesting. Let me tell you, they're interesting. You know, you have to understand that there may be Jeffrey Dahmers in the world. There may be Adam Lanzas in the world, Jeffrey Holmes in the world. But there's also individuals who are psychopaths who use their sex appeal. You know, they use their attractiveness to manipulate. That's how they get over on people. That's how they get ahead in the world. Have you ever wondered why the most handsome individual or beautiful woman can get or achieve a high seat in a political office? Can be the executive or executor of a company, right? Sometimes they use their sex appeal. So consider that you haven't met every psychopath in the world. That should change your perspective a little bit. Okay, I'm just going through just to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Oh God. Nervolitas, hello, welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. She says, or he says, I've seen many parents like that. Unfortunately, it made me sick. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Night Radio Archive, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I feel like I need to start putting disclaimers at the beginning of my live chats. Jeremy Robinson says, can you develop post-traumatic stress disorder? 100%. Growing up under parents like this, 100%. You can even develop what's considered the relationship PTSD, and that's complex PTSD. Absolutely. Divine Serene 25, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. She's kind of sharing her story that's similar to my mom's. Okay, guys, I can't answer these. Oh, you guys have such good questions and comments. I'm just going to say hello to you. Lisa Smith, I'm so sorry. I will get to your comment. If you post it in the comment section for me after this ends, I will answer it. Anything I haven't gotten to tonight verbally, please put it in the comment section. I will answer them there. I will answer them there. Okay, just making sure. Rainforest, hello, welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I don't ever remember seeing you, so welcome. Glad to see you. Thank you so much, Organic Black, for the super sticker, the super chat. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Sade, hello. Hello, welcome. Says, how and why can they sue their parents? Yeah. That's another story. If you post it in the comment section, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of details on that. Okay, Queen Common Sense. Hello, glad to see you back. Welcome. All right, let me make sure. Sean Hammer, I see you. Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Longevity Rituals, if I didn't greet you, hello. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I'm glad you could come back tonight. Okay. Fairy Girl, I don't want to miss you. Welcome, welcome. Glad to see you. Yeah, welcome. Glad to see you, Annie Walker. Yeah, I'm sure you did. Yeah. Keisha Monique, hello, hello. I see you. I just can't pause and read tonight. Girl Mom, hello, hello. Welcome. All right, guys. I see BB. I'm going to say hello to you before I sign off. Hello, BB. Anything, again, that I didn't get to, please post in the comment section below. Thank you so much for coming back to tonight's live chat after yesterday's I don't even know what that was. I felt like I was being cursed. Okay, something was going wrong yesterday. If you have any comments, post them and I will answer them. That's all I can think of to say. I'm exhausted. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I will see you in the next live chat. Have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.